There was this time long ago when I was babysitting my cousin and his 4 friends during a sleepover. My uncle was paying me $100 to watch them for the night. All I had to do was play video games with a bunch of 10-year-olds. I thought it would be the easiest money I'd ever make. But things took a horrible turn when I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. We were all in the basement playing games when 2 of the kids also heard the sounds. I counted 5 kids sitting on the couches, and neither my aunt nor uncle were supposed to be home that night. My stomach dropped when I realized the basement door was wide open. I told the kids to stay put while I ran upstairs to shut the door. The problem was, this door didn't have a lock from the inside, only from the outside. I called down to the kids to hide in the workout room. I shut off the TV and all the lights, then followed them into the small room. We sat there in complete darkness, listening as the footsteps approached the basement door. Then came the horrible sound of the door creaking open, followed by heavy boots stomping down each stair, one by one. One of my cousin's friends started crying. I had to whisper harshly for him to shut up. I leaned against the workout room door with a chair wedged under the handle, along with some barbell weights pushed against it. I listened as whoever it was opened the boiler room door, searched around for a few moments, then closed it again. The kids started screaming when the workout room door handle began to turn. I pushed against the door with everything I had to keep it shut. Whoever was on the other side quickly gave up. We heard rushed footsteps going back up the stairs, then footsteps right above our heads moving toward the front door. This was before everyone had cell phones, so calling for help wasn't my first option. When I finally searched the whole house, I found the front door hanging wide open. All the bedrooms upstairs had been completely trashed. Nobody was in the house anymore. A few things had been stolen, but as long as nobody was hurt, we were all just happy to be alive. It was during a blizzard in Valley Stream, Long Island. I was getting paid $250 to watch some couple's kid while they went away for the weekend. His name was Matthew, and this happened on the first night, Friday night. Matthew was already asleep upstairs while I was in the living room watching a movie. I got a knock at the front door and looked at the clock. It was close to midnight. There was no way I was opening that door. Not even 10 seconds later. "Open the fucking door! Open the door! Open the door!" I heard 2 or 3 men angrily banging on the door, demanding I let them in. I felt like my heart was about to stop. I took a peek through the blinds and saw somebody standing right on the other side of the window, staring back at me. I fell backwards in fear. After getting back on my feet, I ran to the kitchen phone to call the police. They said because of the weather, it could take a while for an officer to get there. They told me to take the child and hide somewhere until help arrived. They wanted to keep me on the line, but I wasn't thinking clearly and hung up. It wasn't until I ran back through the living room that I realized the banging had stopped. I took another peek through the window. Nobody was there. Then I heard the sound of glass shattering from a few rooms over. My knees started to feel weak as I realized they had just broken a window and were climbing into the house. I had to run upstairs and get Matthew. I couldn't just leave him there. When I got upstairs, there was no time to run back down because I could already hear footsteps and laughter coming from downstairs. I covered Matthew's mouth with my hand and ran with him into his toy closet. A few minutes felt like half an hour as we sat there in the dark. Matthew began to whimper as footsteps on the carpet stopped right outside his bedroom door. There was definitely more than one person. They came into the room. There weren't many places to hide, and I was actually thinking about my whole life, convinced I was going to die. Then we heard police sirens outside. Even from inside the closet, we could hear one of the men mutter, "Shit!" I opened the closet door as I heard at least 3 pairs of footsteps rushing down the stairs. They didn't get far. The police later found their footprints in the backyard leading to the shed. There were 5 men in total, and they were all arrested. I was 15 years old, still babysitting since I couldn't get a real job. This was by far the most horrifying experience of my life. I was babysitting this kid named Mike, and we were taking a walk with his dog through the woods behind his house in rural Pennsylvania. The dog suddenly stopped, ears pointed straight up, paw raised in the air. He started barking, pulling, and going completely crazy. The dog had noticed something, and we were nervous it might be a black bear. I told Mike to turn around and walk back to the house. I struggled to pull the dog in the other direction, and that's when I saw what he was barking at. Beyond a big oak tree was some guy just standing there, staring directly at us. I yelled out, asking if he needed something. He just turned around and walked off deeper into the woods. I was genuinely freaked out. The dog calmed down, so walking back was easier for a few minutes. Then the dog started freaking out again about something behind us. I couldn't see what it was, but I was worried it was the same guy following us. I was tempted to let the dog loose on this creep, but that seemed like a bad idea. I didn't look back for the rest of the way to the house, but the dog kept barking and pulling. I did my best to walk as fast as possible. For a good half hour after we got back, I made sure we weren't followed. I checked every window and door repeatedly. I thought it was safe to eventually play Mario Kart with Mike and forget about what happened. But my worst fear came true when I heard the sound of one of the toy buckets falling over right outside the window on the patio. I turned on the patio light and could see that a green bucket full of beach toys and balls had been knocked over. No small animal could have done that. The dog was going crazy again, barking at something outside. I told Mike to get his dad's hunting rifle. Maybe it was stupid to have an 8-year-old get a gun for me, but I didn't have time to think rationally. Strange noises kept coming from all around the outside of the house, tapping on windows, wind chimes being pushed, things falling over. Then I caught a glimpse of him through one of the windows. He was walking past until he noticed me watching and stopped. I lifted the rifle to show him we were armed. He didn't run away right away though. He just stood there, crouched like some kind of animal, staring right into my soul. Finally, he walked back into the woods. I didn't sleep much that night, jumping at every small creaking noise. A week later, I got a call from Mike's parents. They told me a creepy-looking man had been stalking their house from the woods. They asked me to describe what the man I saw looked like. I couldn't give a good description since I didn't see much of his face, but I assured them it was the same person. They practically begged me to babysit again after this, but I always respectfully declined. That was years ago, and I have no idea what became of this family or what became of the man stalking their house. I used to babysit frequently between the ages of 15 and 18. I lived close to a wealthy area in Connecticut where people paid well, and there was never a shortage of families needing sitters. I've definitely had to take care of some strange kids, but this one takes the prize. Right from the moment I met Michael, he seemed really quiet and weird. He was 12 years old enough to be home alone during the day, but maybe not overnight. His parents told me he could be a bit strange sometimes, and might need some extra attention. The room I'd be sleeping in had a huge walk-in closet with a big Lego table and tons of toys. Michael spent most of his time up there building with Legos. I didn't spy on him too much, I just let him do his own thing. But I heard him constantly talking in there as if someone was with him. Not pretend talking like most kids do. Real conversation. I could only assume he had some kind of developmental issues, which is what his parents were hinting at. He came down eventually to eat leftovers from the fridge, but then went right back to his closet. It wasn't until I told him it was time for bed that he finally left the closet. I just wanted to get some sleep myself. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to sounds coming from the closet, the sound of toys, like Legos being moved around. I called out to Michael to go to sleep. The sound stopped immediately. The light wasn't on in the closet, so I was confused about how he could be playing in complete darkness. I got up and opened the closet door, turning on the light. Michael wasn't in there. I must have been hearing things. I wasn't normally a paranoid person. I fell back asleep. About an hour later, I woke up to partial brightness in the room. The closet light was on, but the door was shut. I called Michael's name again. I was getting annoyed now. I could see the outlines of 2 feet at the bottom of the closet door, and then I heard a little giggle, as if Michael was messing with me. I knew he was in there. I marched over and threw open the door, then literally fell backwards in horror. Nobody was in there at all. Where the 2 outlines of feet had been, there was nothing. I felt a sharp pain in my chest from pure fear. I ran to Michael's room and found him fast asleep in his bed. I locked his door and laid down on his floor. Just being next to another person made me feel safer. I fell asleep on the floor, and when his parents returned the next day, I decided to keep quiet about what I witnessed. I say, witnessed, because I know it happened. I got paid and left, never having to worry about it again. Of course, it still sends chills up my spine thinking about it, and I still have no idea what to believe.